-20 for that ID card only system.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hello,
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, well, good.
I'll try to stay with you guys as long as I can. Had a pretty intensive physical therapy session, and sitting right now is not one of my fortes.
You're getting your money's worth then, huh?
Well, the good news is I'm starting to get some use of my right leg back, but the bad news is that I've got like a pain level of like 8 to 9 in my lower back. And it gets worse the more I sit. So I'm kind of slouched in my chair. But if I sign off early, you'll know why.
Well, hopefully we have a few more members join us. I think looks like our first Selectman Bill is with us.
Hey, Bill.
Signed in.
I am. Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh,
Good to see you.
Good to see you folks.
Bill, you didn't have to put a tie on just for us.
I don't know why not.
So when are we going to get some warm weather? That's what I want to know.
Oh, 'tis the season, I guess.
It's like I drive around Connecticut and Ashford, all the trees seem to be like a few days behind everybody else. Like in the cold belt here, I think still.
Yeah. It's still trying to make up its mind.
When I used to work in Hartford and was driving from Hartford down to here, it's even worse where I'm up high on this ridge. I'm about 2 to 3 weeks behind the everything blooming in Hartford. Matter of fact, we're just now having some of the daffodils come out.
Oh, my.
Got a few of the early ones out, but there's a lot that haven't blossomed yet.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Nice to meet you all.
Evening.
Hello.
I think Gwen said she couldn't make it because she had to work tonight. Did you hear from anyone else, Mike?
I believe Margaret's going to be here this evening. So I expect her to come online. Haven't heard from Ray. I think Gwen said she might try to join us as she's in transit.
We still have a lot of people, Bill, that refuse to go to a Zoom meeting. Matter of fact, we've got about half of the EDC that will not join a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, I run into that frequently. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're developing what eventually we're going to have with these hybrid meetings where people have an option either to attend in person or, through Zoom.
I've even had a couple of people offer to resign because they haven't, they don't want to participate in anything with Zoom. So it's,
Hmm.
So we'll give it a couple more minutes, and then Bill, we'll just I'll make a motion once we get going, just to move you up to the agenda there, so we can take advantage of the time you're willing to give us here this evening. And
I will give you all of the time you need, Mike, and feel free. I have no problem or other commitment tonight. So I like to kind of hear what you guys are doing or whatever. So your pleasure.
Thank you,
even if
sir.
we don't have a quorum, we can still give you an overview of what's been happening and what's going forward.
Sounds good to
Okay.
me.
Well, it looks like we have a quorum because Margaret's joining us. So good
Wonderful.
evening, Margaret.
Evening.
So maybe while we've got a quorum and while everybody's time is valuable, maybe we'll call the meeting to order here. And we have a couple of guests. So I just want to, why don't we go around and introduce ourselves anyhow? I'm Mike Cantic, kind of in the lead on this Our Town, Our Future initiative. You start up on did everybody get the same screen? I wonder, but maybe Maureen, go ahead. You would.
Hi, I'm Maureen Hannick. I've been a member of the committee for several years now, I think.
We got Margaret.
Hi all, Margaret Chady. I am a co-owner of Westford Hill Distillers here in Ashford and a resident for 40 plus years, and sort of a participant with Our Town, Our Future, but not as much of a driver as some of the other people in the room.
We have Ray Fenn. Are you with us, Ray? Maybe we'll go to Dick.
Okay, I'm RS Will, and unfortunately my Zoom camera, my Logitech camera won't work with Zoom, but I think I was involved way back at the beginning of this activity with Mike and several others. Ray was there at the beginning too, and all of this started by having a meeting where we asked all of the elected officials, plus anyone that was interested in participating in town government, to attend a open session in Knowlton Hall, where we broke into groups and kind of talked about projects that might be viable to sponsor. And that's where a lot of the initial efforts had started.
And RS Will stands for Richard Williams, otherwise known as Dick, right?
Correct. And Ray, you're on, but you need to unmute yourself.
Are you with us, Ray? Can you hear us? Then I guess we'll go around Mr. Felletti. Good evening.
I always tell everybody, Mr. Felletti was my father, but good evening. I'm Bill Felletti, First Selectman. It's a pleasure to join you folks tonight.
Thank you, sir. And I don't know, the EDP there, 11. Yes, sir.
Yep. That's me. That's my Yukon. My name is Eddie, technically Edward. I work at Yukon, so they go by government name. So please refer to me as Eddie. I've known Margaret for a very, very long time. I'm her son's very close friends, Carter. I'm 27 and I work at UConn as an international services specialist for our international department. And she approached me today, you know, curious if I'd be interested, and I very much am so. And I'm very happy to be here. You know, if I can give any thoughts at all, I'm very happy to be here.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And then we have, looks like Dave.
Hi, yeah, I'm Dave Prue. I grew up in Ashford. I moved to San Diego in 2004, and I just moved back in 2020. And I work with Margaret at the town of Mansfield in like the same office.
Very nice. Well, welcome, everybody. What I'd like to do is, this
And we
evening-
have Margaret as usual as the chief recruiter.
Thank you, Margaret. And welcome, everybody. We really do appreciate you coming. And, you know, I think it's, we're always looking to get new people involved. I think that's one of Bill's goals as well, is to try to get more people involved. And, you know, because it's a beautiful town, Ashford is. And those of you that grew up in it, you know, myself, I've been a property owner since 1998. So I've got to just don't have as much time maybe as you, Dave, and others, but it's a beautiful, beautiful town. And I think we all want to work towards trying to maintain what the wonderful things that Ashford has to offer, and see how we can continue to move that forward in the future. I mean, it's much like a garden. If you don't manage a garden and tend to the weeds, things happen that you don't necessarily want to happen, and the fruits don't always bear the wonderful things that you want them to bear. So I think that's part of why we're all involved, because we want the positive things and continue to make Ashford a special place to both live and work and raise families and whatever people want to do here. So with that, I'd like to just move up item 5A, which was a discussion with our first selectman, so that we can hear what Bill's thoughts may be, and then also some of the things that we've been kind of talking about over the last year. We've, you know, for those that are new to our little gathering here this evening, I will say, as a matter of kind of setting where we are, we've kind of been a little bit of a neutral here for a little bit with the COVID and the pandemic. And I think we're really trying to get back on track. I mean, we had some pretty good momentum going until things kind of came about here in 2020. So I think we're looking to see how we can build upon that and kind of get re-energized, so to speak. And it's good to see some new faces here that hopefully can provide some of that energy and ideas and thoughts on how we can continue to be contributors to what's good here in Ashford. So with that, Bill, I'd like to just turn it over to you for any thoughts that you may have at this point.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. And, you know, like Margaret, I've been here, I think in my 41st or 42nd year, and there's times I still feel like a newcomer, but we do have a wonderful community here. And I know that I've been blessed with being involved for over 30 years now. And it's a pleasure seeing a community like ours progress in the way. And I think one of the important, as Dick mentioned, I sat in on those couple of initial meetings when you folks were being formulated and the ideas were being conceived. And, you know, too often we look backwards and not forward enough. And I have always looked at your group as somebody that can lead us and try to focus on some directions and some of the goals that we have for our future. And, you know, it's a pleasure seeing folks like Eddie and David join us because they're going to be inheriting a lot of the groundwork that we're putting forward right now. So the more people that we can get into this sort of an organization, and I thank you all for serving on it, is vital to our community. I know back, probably 35 years ago when I decided to get involved in the local community, I went to the planning and zoning meeting. I probably attended as many meetings as any of their members did for 2 or 3 years. And you know, it's organizations like planning and zoning, like you folks, finance committee, where you realize how hard people are working behind the scenes on a volunteer basis, and how critical it is to our community. I know one of my priorities is to try to get more people involved. And, going through the situation that we have with COVID and being a financial economic situation that people are in right now, people don't have a lot of time to volunteer. So I even have a greater appreciation for you folks that take the time out of your days and nights to do an effort on behalf of the town. Our community wouldn't be anywhere near what we are without our volunteers. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that, but it's a critical part of our entire community. I know right now our fire department, for instance, I served on the department for just under 10 years. And our membership at that time, active members, we could count on between 30 and 35 people. Well, right now our active membership is around 15. And, it's working with folks like you with the fire department and everything to make the awareness to the general public that we need volunteers. And I would think a big part of my future goals is to encourage that and try to complement that in any way we can. I'll get off my soapbox, and I'm here to listen to you folks and answer some questions you may have. The only thing I'll remind you, and I probably don't have to remind too many of you, that we've got a critical budget vote coming up here on May 3rd. And whatever your persuasion or your thought is on the budget, I just encourage you to vote and try to get your neighbors and friends and relatives to do the same, because that's one of the great things that we have in our country, is the ability to vote and express what your opinion is. And I encourage everybody to participate on that. So Mike, I'll give the floor back to you, and I am open for questions or discussions on any subject you'd like to run by me.
Hey, Mike, could I jump in for a second for the,
Sure.
the new people here? We've called ourselves that are in this meeting, the core group. What we mean by that is that we're the group that tries to facilitate and coordinate projects as they come up. It doesn't mean that we're the ones that actually do all the projects. I'll give two projects as examples. Everyone probably is driven by the intersection of 44 and 74 and seen the graphic arts that was painted on the derelict old A1 station. That was a suggestion that came out of one of the Our Town, Our Future meetings, and it spawned a whole group of people that were artists and just people that helped clear the lot and ended up turning what was a eyesore into at least something that is somewhat interesting and pleasant to look at. But that was not done by Our Town, Our Future, but it was facilitated by us. Probably the best example of a activity that was started within and then spun out was the Ashford Arts Council, which is very active, and they've got a art show coming up. I think it's about mid-June sometime, Margaret. I don't have the exact dates, but it's a very active group. They're affiliated now with the Wyndham Arts Council. I'm not sure what the membership is, but it's probably upwards of a dozen or two. And that initially was started under the Our Town, Our Future. And there's been other projects that have been proposed. Some have taken off, some haven't gone anywhere. I also want to mention, since Bill's here, and this was a subject that he had mentioned when we were gearing up for the last election. And one of our public forums is the Facebook page that we have in Our Town, Our Future Facebook page, but there's also one on the Ashford Community Connection. And Bill, there's been a lot of activity and discussion as of late, if there's a possibility for the town to sponsor a dog park. And I know that was something that was on your heart at one point in time. And
Well,
that
I've been dogs have been a favorite of mine since my childhood, it is something that I intend on pursuing. We're looking at a couple of different locations. One, we're probably the one that makes the most sense with the potential on that is at Ashford Memorial Park. And what we're thinking about doing is looking at about an acre to start with, and fencing it off and then putting some benches and things like that in. But that is a goal, Dick, and it's something that I think we can do relatively inexpensive. And I think I know in running it by people, there's seems to be a great desire in pursuing that. And I intend on trying to do that.
Yeah, and that's a good example of what could turn into be a project for our town, our future. Last time I counted the people that were discussing this on Facebook, there seemed to be a good half a dozen people that were actively, proponents of such a thing. So one of the things we could do is reach out to those people. They don't have to become members of our town, our future, but they could form a citizen group that could advise and work with the Board of Selectmen and other town offices to try to help define and facilitate such a thing happening.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Dick.
Yeah, I have been working with the Rec Commission through Sherry York and that. She's done a lot of research for me, and we've even had some discussions on experiences that towns who have already had them, pros and cons and that sort of thing. So it is something that can't say it's at the top of the list, but it's certainly on our list of things we're going to be looking into.
Thank you. One of the things that we've had over the years is stakeholder meetings, and I think I alluded to before that one of our last gatherings was kind of we'll call it almost like a leadership meeting of community stakeholders, and included the business people, included the churches, it included some of our nonprofits. It included some of our boards and commissions and residents at large. And planning and zoning was basically one of the, co-sponsors of that meeting. And kind of what we've used kind of as a playbook of sorts the last few years anyhow has been our plan of conservation and development. Within that, so it's really almost like a strategic plan for the community in a sense. That it offers the various areas of interest that the community has. That really it's driven obviously by the state in a larger sense, because they look for every state to have kind of this plan of conservation development. But I think more importantly, the way Ashford had kind of designed it, I think is unique and really a good way to approach it, because we identified goals and objectives within all those categories, and we've kind of used that in a sense as a community to kind of use that as a checkoff box of things that we can work on, because all those things have been identified as things that are positive for the community, that help the community move in the direction that the citizens have really identified as things they'd like to engage in and move forward on. And I think one of the things we've kind of talked about, Bill, and Ed and Dave here, is that we're going to be coming up on, believe it or not, it's every 10 years you have to do a major update to the plan of conservation, but technically every 5 years you're supposed to kind of do a check over of how you're doing and progress update, and theoretically every year you should have, every month, every year you should be looking at it and working on it. But with that plan was done already back in 2015, and so we've already kind of gone by the time when we should have looked at it 5 years, but we're really trying to gear up in another 2.5 years, literally, to be actually presenting that back to the state, delivering it to the state by 2025. So one of the things we talked about, Bill, I think you and I talked about it too, and it's been kind of out there, is to kind of re-engage the public again in one of these leadership roundtable meetings, to begin to pull together, solicit ideas and thoughts, maybe to see if we can get volunteers who want to work on it, because it's not an easy thing to do. We did have some help from our regional planning agency, of course, to kind of do some of the legwork on it, but it's really driven by the citizens. It's really the planning and zoning responsibility, but I think as a community we step forward and try to help everybody do their job as well. And I think having one of those meetings again we had back in 2019, a leadership roundtable. When it brought together all these different parties, we had a lot of synergy that occurred. We had some groups that didn't realize that they had overlapping goals and objectives, that they were doing things that were other groups were doing. I think one of the things I kind of look to is that the Salvation Army Conroy off of 74, has always been a major part of the community, but they really hadn't engaged as much with some of the various groups. And I think there's really been, even this past year, they've reached out and had some, they had like a winter fest here recently. They had a fishing derby for kids. They've really engaged the community more openly, and I think those are the kind of things that we benefit from. I think some of the church groups kind of cross-pollinated with some of the other groups in town as well. I think again there was a partnership that kind of evolved, and new cooperation was seen there. So I think there's an opportunity again to kind of re-engage the public. Hopefully we can all get back in person here. I think begin to worry when I read the news here lately, again, that we're going backwards. But I think they'll, from your leadership perspective, the Board of Selectmen, really have, I think we did this a couple times over the years. They've kind of helped lead the charge on this to kind of pull everybody together and solicit the input to kind of move things forward. And I just throw that out there again as a bunch of things happening here and cross purposes, but I think engaging the public at large as we did before, it seemed that we had great participation first of all, and a lot of the ideas that came out of it, and just people meeting each other, even that in that case, some people that didn't know about other groups, I think served a great purpose in in a small community. I mean, we rely on each other, and I think working together is such an important part of what makes Ashford special. And I think we can really get a lot of things accomplished if we pull groups together. I mean, the dog park, a perfect example is that you pull all these groups together and you may find there's some willingness for sponsorship opportunities from some of these, some of our nonprofits, or maybe they have something they'd like to contribute to it in a space or whatever. You never know. I mean, I think that's what it's all about. So I don't know what your thoughts are, Bill. I know that you told me that you thought maybe that was something that you were thinking about too, as something that we could look to do as an important start to maybe the next few years here in Ashford.
Well, I would hope to do that sooner than the next few years. I'd like to, and of course we're all keeping a daily watch on COVID and its progression with this latest variant. Luckily the figures that we're seeing, that we're getting both from the CDC and also from State Health Department and our local health department, is that while the numbers are surging a bit, hospital admissions are keeping relatively low, and fortunately enough, the death toll is not mounting on it. The people that I run into on a day-to-day basis that have the unfortunate positive results of coming down with it lately are suffering no more than what we would consider a bad cold and the symptoms associated with that. But it's something obviously over the past couple of years that has set us all back, and we're hoping to recover from that as soon as possible. I think, Mike, one of the things that I mentioned to you that I initiated in the 90s, and it had a great reception, was we started potluck suppers for all our boards and commissions. And I remember we'd set up round tables there at a huge round table there at Knowlton Hall and invite all our committees and everything. And it turned out to be a great interaction, because while many of our folks serve on different committees, they don't realize how many other people and what the other functions of other committees are doing. So we'd have either a spokesman or a chairperson or a designated spokesperson just get up and give a brief explanation. What does our town, our future do, or what are our goals? And we found just that interaction amongst ourselves help bring other people in. And it's certainly a goal of mine to institute again and try that out. The more communication that we can have and promote, I think the better off we all will be, and the future of our town. So I certainly agree. Go ahead,
Is
Mark.
there any chance that we could organize such a session, even if we do it outdoors, right? We're coming into the long days, warm evenings. Even if we are concerned with COVID about coming into Knowlton Hall, I mean, is there some way that we could organize an Our Town, Our Future boards and commissions group within the next couple of months? I mean, just to get people before the summer and then so that we have some direction for the fall.
Margaret, I don't know why not, and I'd be happy to help with that. I mean, when we're talking about outdoor facilities, the things that come to mind is at Pompey Hollow Park, around the gazebo or there, we could probably utilize the kitchen with the senior center. Ashford Memorial Park, we have tables already set up there, that's kind of set up with plenty of parking too, but I think that's certainly something that we could be looking at and looking into doing. I think it's a good idea. Eddie,
We
you
just
had your
kind
hand
of
up?
need a good
Yes.
sound system, right? So that people could hear. We would need to plug in some kind of a
And
microphone with a couple of speakers, just so that if you get a large number of people outdoors, you
Yeah.
can hear what the thoughts are.
and we do have a good sized sound system that we've used for Memorial Day before. Eddie, you had a,
It's essentially what Maureen and Mrs. Trady was saying, kind of similar to I'm curious to why there's some type of like restriction to why we can't do what Mrs. Trady was saying.
Indoors, you mean?
Yeah,
say that again, I'm sorry. I didn't hear, Margaret, what you said.
Could we do it indoors? I mean, is there?
That's-
I
That's
think
my
so.
bet.
I am loosening up restrictions on Knowlton Hall. I don't know if you've seen, I know the Art Council is meeting in there now. Several other groups we've got, there's a function there the second or first week in May by one of the town committees. We are loosening up on that. Masks are optional. We started that back first week in March here at Town Hall. So little by little, we've been doing that. But at the same time, we want to proceed with caution, and that's why we do monitor, the reports we're getting on this latest variant and everything. But I don't see why we can't start opening that up. I'll share a couple of things with you. I was hoping this Memorial Day, in fact, I spoke with members of the fire department and public works and everything. I wanted to bring the parade back and have more of an outside function in that. But because of this COVID, we're going to have something similar to what we had last year around the Veterans Memorial. The band, Babcock Band, is actually actively practicing again. I've had discussions with the band leader, and Memorial Day, we're going to set up the gazebo with chairs around it. After this, the commemorative celebrations at the memorial setting, Veterans Memorial, then we're going to invite people to come down and join us in the park. But the point I wanted to make, what I'm trying to do, and I've already started to talk to people, is to do a parade on the 4th of July weekend to culminate with perhaps a community picnic. And I'd love you guys to get involved in it. I'm going to appeal to everybody that wants to get into it. I sense from you folks, and I sense from the general public and my own family and myself, there's an urge for us to come out of this thing and to start socializing and enjoy each other's companies and start recognizing faces
absolutely.
without looking through masks and that sort of thing. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in joining in on the people that I've mentioned, the organizations this July, we would probably do it on the Sunday before the 4th of July. I would encourage you to join in and try to take part in this Memorial Day celebration too. It's going to be a lower key sort of thing, but I think it's the beginning of us getting out to the outdoors and starting to socialize more.
No, thank you very much for the update. And I think that's why Margaret or Miss Strady kind
You
of.
can call me Margaret.
No, I always call you Miss Strady. I think that's why there's a part of me coming to this conversation, so I appreciate it. I like your answer a lot. Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah, Mike, I think to talk about something that we can do, the last meeting that we had where we invited all the heads of all the committees in town and all the organizations. That was a very productive meeting. And unfortunately, right after that, that's when COVID hit and there wasn't a lot of follow-up. But I think recreating that same meeting again in Knowlton Hall in the not distant future would be a good, project to, kick off, because that's really where all of the ideas come from, just by having those meetings.
Yeah, there was a lot of great feedback, and no doubt about it. I mean, it certainly provides a good stepping stone to looking at things to move forward on. So what do you think, Bill? You think that's something we should look to work on?
Absolutely.
I mean, after obviously, so maybe what should we shoot for, like with the middle end of June? I mean, is that a good time? I think all the budgets
Well,
should be done by then, right?
school's out around the 20th. So I think, June is, it's a busy time with lots of
Right.
concerts and, school related stuff. But after that, I think, you've sort of lost a lot of people till, so, it's something to shoot for. And then we could do another one in September if it wasn't, robustly attended.
Yeah,
Two-
I agree. It's something to pursue, and with the economy the way it is right now, we could always talk ourselves into there's not going to be many people around, but who knows if people are going to be doing a lot of traveling in that this year. And I prefer to get something done and have 50 people there and be happy with that, and build on that for the next one. I just get a feeling that the community is hungering for that right now.
Yeah, Mike, I think you've got all of the framework and the distribution list and the agenda, everything from the last meeting that we had. If you simply replicate that and find a date that is open in Knowlton Hall, and just and if there is questions about who might come, maybe a step one would be to send something out asking people to select which dates might work for them. And then let's just try to do it in June and July.
Yeah, I'll get something out. I'd like to just, pose to Eddie and Dave, obviously you guys have been connected to the community for a long time. You've grown up here. What can we do to kind of engage more of your generation in some of these activities that we're looking at? And how do we pull out what you guys view as an interest or things you want to see in the community? Go ahead, Eddie.
So for me, sorry, I gotta get back on. I think what can you hear it and see me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Cool. So something that I would like personally, is a little improvement to we have a park very close to me where Margie knows. I would love maybe like a small disc golf or golf course. In my opinion, that might be biased, but that's kind of my thoughts. I would also love like another kind of like a parking trail somewhere. Or no, sorry, a walking trail. Sorry.
Hiking trails.
Yeah. I think Mark would probably agree with that. We could use a couple more of those.
Yeah, Eddie, there is, through the Conservation Commission, we've sponsored several trails. The most recent is one that goes behind the senior center.
Yep.
And there's another one, and I'm not much into doing any hiking. I can barely walk right now, so I pass on that. But there's another one that links up to the Ruby Fenton area. Mike, can you help me here?
I'm not sure about that one, to be honest.
It sort of starts out near, not far from us. It's over on Howie Road is sort of the entrance to it.
Okay.
A Nipmuc, maybe?
No, it's something
It's-
Meister, something,
It's done through Joshua Trust.
yeah. But I
Oh,
think-
Yes,
but the-
well, that's why I know one of the Joshua Tree or Joshua Trust ones, sorry. But I don't know all of them for sure.
But I think my point of bringing that up is there is within the town already a number of people that are interested in developing new trails and promoting the trails. Oh, help me, Bob's last name is Niskowski. I can never pronounce it.
Oh,
Is-
and Bob Ignatowicz, yeah, here on Shady Road.
Right.
And it's
he-
the Langhammer property is the trail you're trying to think of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it
Yeah.
might be advantageous just to get a total listing of all Joshua's, the Nipmuc Forest Trail, Nipmuc Trail, town trails,
Compile
together,
them
combined
somehow.
on one map. Because I mean,
Yeah.
I know there's, we that's one of our treasures here in Ashford is the trail systems. I mean, there's so many of
Yeah.
them. There's miles,
And-
miles,
It
miles.
might be selfish on my part, and I will admit to it, but I would love some disc golf or just hiking trails. I know we have hiking trails, but I like to walk, I like to throw discs. Those
So,
are my thing.
that's interesting, Eddie, that you brought that up because my son, Jordan, who lives
Jordan.
here in Ashford also,
Yeah,
I was talking to him about our town, our future, and he said, boy, you know what I'd really love to see is it would be so great if we had a small disc golf course
yeah,
right here in town, because it's something that people who are into it, and he knew that Eddie was one of them, they travel to go play disc golf courses. And if you can jump in your car and drive for 20 minutes, right, to this town or that town, it would be nice if we were one of those towns that people were coming to. And it just really isn't an expensive thing. So it might be something like the dog park bill. It might be something to sort of think about adding to the Parks and Rec. How could we add something like that and maybe get in our town, our future working group together to sort of come up with what would it cost and how could we make that work?
yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
Mark,
long.
what I was trying to get Bob's name in that is the EDC that got involved in Visit CT, I think is the name of the,
Yeah, CT visits, yep.
right? And as a result of Bob's efforts, they have put together an Ashford page. And one of the things on the Ashford page is a listing of all the trail systems. And the idea is to promote the trail system as a attraction for people to come to the town. So not saying we can't do things out of this, but one of the things that our town, our future can do is by knowing which other activities are going on is find ways that we can link those things together. We see ourselves rather than doers as more facilitators.
I would love that. That's a great. I'd love that so much.
Hey, Dave, oh, I'm sorry, Bill.
No, go ahead.
Dave, we haven't heard from you. You have any thoughts on how we maybe both engage your generation, so to speak, in things, and how do we, what's the best platforms to kind of get information and things that maybe you see as what would benefit at Ashford?
Sure. Yeah. It's funny. I was like talking to two of my friends that also grew up down the street from me the other day, and they were saying that they'd like it. It would be cool if there was some kind of like ticker or billboard or something at 74 and 44. Like they were like, well, we drive through there all the time, and like it'd be great to know what was like going on in the town and stuff like that. I think one of them lives in Wellington and one lives in Coventry now, but they were talking about how they still like drive through and want to know what's going on and that sort of thing. So maybe stuff like that. I mean, I guess that's kind of the question I have. I watched one of your other meetings, and it seems like there's not really like a great way to crowdsource ideas for the town, or at least not one that's like very cohesive to get them all in one place or something like that. So I think maybe that would be a good place to start. But yeah, I mean, a disc golf course probably would be a good idea. No, I've never thought about that before, but it seems like pretty popular around. I don't know. There's actually a trail. I hike a lot, and there's a trail. I think it's around Mansfield Hollow, if I'm correct. But somebody has like an almost an entire disc golf course in their backyard off of that trail. And I was like, I saw that the other day, and I was like, that's
you're
crazy.
correct. It's right by Mansfield Hollow. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, but
Got
yeah,
one in my
it seems like
backyard.
Like Ashford would be a good spot for that, but
Yep.
the outdoor stuff I think would be a good call for here because I know there's at least when I was growing up here, there was a lot of people who are into the outdoors and like to hunt and fish and stuff like that. And, I mean, we have two of the major trail systems that run through the town there in Nipmuc and Natchog. So I don't know. I'd always thought it was cool because I've done a lot of the Joshua Tree stuff too, but it'd be nice if like there was one trail that connected all the trail systems in Ashford, but I think that might be a little more difficult to do with all the private property and stuff.
Go ahead, Bill, I'm sorry.
When we were developing Pompey Hollow Park, where the senior center and the housing are there, we were working on, in fact, we built that whole area on grants. And we had a recreational grant. I don't know if you're familiar, but on the river, on the Hope River down there, there's a fishing, it was going to be a fishing area. And we put in we call it an infrastructure for future trail systems. And we installed 2 wooden bridges down there. There's a deck down there. It's a river overlook. I talked to people in town that aren't even aware it's there. We own about 34 acres there in and around the housing, and it goes all the way back. And at one time we developed a master plan that showed a intricate trail system going up the hill there towards St. Philip's Church, coming out on 44. And that's how we gained the grants to put in that the infrastructure for trail systems. There's also a trail system down at Ashford Memorial Park along the Hope River that we're hoping to enhance in that. One of the things I wanted to mention, we're in a very unique situation right now because the town was awarded about $2.2 million for ARPA funds. And we'll be holding, we were hoping to have it already, but because of this COVID situation, we've kind of been holding back. We were hoping to do it as a combined, like we said, a hybrid public hearing to take input on the sort of things you're talking about. Until about 4 months ago, I never even heard of a pickleball court. And that's something that's become very popular now. And it's one of the things that we've got a lot of recommendations on enhancing and improving the pickleball court that we hear at Pompey Hollow Park. We're doing some enhanced security fencing at Ashford Memorial Park, but a lot of those grant funds can be addressed to recreational areas like you're talking about. So I would encourage you folks, we'll be publicizing and everything, but to partake in the public hearing we have when we're prioritizing sort of, for lack of a better term, a wish list on things that we want to go ahead and dedicate some of the funding that we have secured from ARPA.
It would be good, Mike, to have that stakeholders meeting before that public meeting, so we could generate a list of ideas from that group.
There is a survey that's been in the Citizen and I would encourage you don't have to, but if you could respond to that, you can respond to my office here at the Selectman's office and just email us some things that you might have as ideas for that. We'll certainly include them in a comment section when that public hearing does come back. But the more input we can get, the better. We're not going to be able to do everything, but it's the way we prioritize things. We've got some repairs right now to the front of Knowlton Hall. We've got some HVAC issues that we're addressing to enhance air quality and that in some of our buildings. But we've still got some funds that have not been designated or allotted that we're looking for public input on, and that's critical.
Going back to the stakeholder, I don't mean to be a one-out record, but the original stakeholder meeting that we had, if I recall, that generated at least a dozen possible projects. And, and more importantly, it also identified people that were outside of this group that were interested enough to, to volunteer to work on those. And talking to our 2 fellows that are into hiking here, Bill Darcy, who used to be active in some of the committees in town, has since moved to New Hampshire. He was an avid hiker, and he was basically trailblazing. And I'm not sure if the trail is still there, but there is the remnants of a trail that go from the senior housing project all the way down to Ashford Memorial Park.
It is there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's been hiked on. Last time he hiked on it, he would hike on it with a machete to help clear it. So
Yeah.
if you don't hike on a trail, it goes away quickly.
Absolutely. We've had a couple of Eagle Scout projects over the last 10 years. They've gone back and tried to enhance some of those trails. And our public works assisted them with that. But no, those are things that I think we definitely should pursue.
Maureen or Ray, you have anything you'd like to add, talk about?
No, sounds
Ray?
great.
Are you there, Ray? Can you? Hey, Ray,
Can you
just
hear me?
us? Oh, yes,
Yes,
go
we
ahead.
can.
Oh, I didn't
You're
think you could
on.
hear me. I
Yes.
thought I was still mute. I have a question for Bill. The property on Pompey Road and 44, the corner is being cleared.
Yes, sir.
What's happening there?
We're just clearing it, clearing up the property, taking out the dead brushes and everything, just to make it a little more presentable.
Okay, so you're still going to sell it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Has any of the material that that you had earlier, has that been presented to you as far as the value of the property, et cetera?
No, but I intend on getting together with the Economic Development Committee and reopening that whole sort of thing about possibilities and that there.
Okay, well, that's enough. Thank you.
Yeah, Bill, at one point in time, we had a lot of praise by 3 different realtors. It's old now, so it's not up to date. And we were also, I think Mike was leading the charge in some cases, trying to find viable tenants that might want to develop that property.
Well, initially, I think the dollar store was looking at that, but that kind of got poo-pooed.
Yeah, I still got scars on my back from that meeting.
Yeah.
But
Ano-
anyway,
ano-
it's a lovely piece of property and I'd like to get some use out of it. I mean, in my dream, I guess I'd love to see a nice quaint doctor's office there with a dentistry sort of thing, but it's
Or even a
something that,
pharmacy.
it's definitely a nice area. It's a great location there, and Public Works had some time on their hands, so I worked with the highway foreman and we got the crew in there, and it's just a matter of cleaning up.
Yeah,
Thank you very
Bill,
much. Appreciate it.
a comment to Eddie. You're worrying about trails, the Langheimer Trail, which is actually a town forest. That, by the way, connects with Fenton Ruby Trail in Willington. That gives you about 2 miles of walking and quite an extensive, array of outdoor activity if you're interested. And that is, as Margaret pointed out, that's up where she is. I think it's off of Howie Road, Margaret, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like
go ahead,
to,
Margaret.
if I can jump in,
Sure.
one thing, Bill, that I want to really thank you and thank the town of Ashford for. One of the key stakeholder themes that came up out of our Town Our Future meetings was the, how do we connect people? And I think that was before we had so many community Facebook pages where it is one means for people to connect, and that's a positive thing. But I want to say that, whether people read it or not, I still think the fact that the town has invested in the Ashford Citizen to publish that and mail it to every household, it's a little bit old fashioned, but I just feel like it's a great thing for us to do, because I just feel like there's no other way for us to get unified news about what's happening in our town and sharing, so I really very much appreciate that that's something that the town of Ashford stepped up and did, because I think that's huge for us. And like I said, it was, how do we learn what's going on at EO Smith? How do we learn what's going on at the schools if you don't have kids at the schools? Like those are real challenges in this age of, modern communication. I feel in some ways we're more disconnected than ever. So I really appreciate that. Another theme that popped up out of Our Town, Our Future were bike trails. And it kind of goes with what Eddie and Dave have mentioned, that I think our younger generation are, they're living in Ashford because they want to connect with the outdoors here. So I know that Njord was very interested in the whole bike trail piece. And maybe that's something that we can even connect with other communities about. And then there's also been some conversation on some of the social media about community gardens, and that not everybody in Ashford lives in a house that has access to having a garden. And I'm thinking, something that has emerged in the last 6 or 9 months is there's now the garden club, or a lot of the people, but this whole interest in pollinator pathways and how people can plant native plants in order to support our pollinators. So that's a whole group that is activating that I would love to kind of pull into the Our Town, Our Future sphere, because they definitely have a vision about how they could join with other towns and regionalize the pollinator pathway project. But this whole notion of a community garden, and again, Ashford is rich enough in resources. Is there a place, is there a way to carve off a dozen modest plots? And if there's interest in that, we could kind of call with the stakeholder meeting and have that be one of the subjects and see, is there a genuine interest there and how might we make that? So those were a couple of ideas that I just wanted to get onto Bill's radar as well.
I agree with you wholeheartedly about the Citizen. If we were to depend on either the Chronicle or the Current to get our information out, we'd never get any information out. Sometimes I wonder if they know we're on the map, but Sherry Much in the town clerk's office and everything, and their volunteers do a wonderful job with that. I think it's a great resource that we utilize. And I couldn't agree with you more, Margaret, on that.
Yeah, Bill, on that Citizen, and goes more out to Eddie and Dave. Sherry is not the one that generates the content. She's the one that's the editor. There's desperately searching for people to write articles and to submit content. And, things that we've talked about here could definitely be, a short, page and a half piece. And they would love to have things like that sent into them, for publication.
Absolutely. Margaret, you mentioned Njord. I've had a couple of meetings with Njord. We got together with our planning office just last week, and we're appealing to Congressman Courtney for some support to look into coming up with the bike paths, primarily on Route 89 and that, connecting perhaps our town with Union and everything. You do several towns involved in that. We definitely want to pursue that. I agree to have my signature to that letter to the congressman for support on that. Eddie, you had your hand up to.
Oh, sorry. I might have been stretched my face. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
On
Okay.
the trails too, I have very little information here, but there's on YouTube, there's a couple of YouTube videos on all the trails in Ashford. And I don't even know the gentleman who did it, but he shows portions of it that he's hiked, and it's pretty informative, and it's very positive about Ashford.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Maybe we could add that link to our CT visits page. Thank you for
Yeah,
mentioning that.
I have to
Maureen.
find it. Yeah, it's very good, really. I was surprised.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
Bob.
And there's two of them.
Yeah, Bob is the prime contact, and the EDC meeting is, I think 7 or 7:30 tomorrow night, also on Zoom, and the agenda is posted on the town website. But one of the things is going to be talking about projects that can be done. We've have got Shante Fields, is that her name, Mike?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got some things that she's working on with us. So we're very interested in bringing things like that onto that CT visit site.
I just had a question for Eddie and Dave. What media platform do you guys kind of tune into to get, communicate with, say, fellow citizens, if you like, or how do you get your information? I mean, we all read about Twitter, and I don't know whether it's Snapchat or, I'm not sure what do you guys use?
So I'm not very active on social media myself personally, to be honest, but I do for my Yukon job. I do run our Facebook, so I do see Facebook quite often, which kind of translates to Instagram. But aside of those two, it's just basically Twitter.
For you, Dave.
Yeah, I don't even use Facebook. I pretty much only use.
I would not. I would not use Facebook if it was not for my job. I can't.
Right. Yeah, I don't. I think I was going to ask, actually, does the town have an Instagram page or an Instagram account?
We have a Facebook page. We have a website, of course.
Right. Well, yeah, and I mean, I like to echo on the citizens pretty great. Like I read that whenever it comes out, so that I appreciate that.
We've
but,
started something else. I don't know if you folks are aware of it. It's called Text My Gov.
Yeah, I think I signed up for that.
You can get direct text and everything. We just added a couple of new titles to that. So if you signed up a number of months ago, you might want to take another look. And there's a new category there called First Selectman Alerts, Town Alerts.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of that before, to be honest.
If you've got a citizen, look in, because we've been running bigger ads, and we've got a lot of people signing up for that now. But it's another valuable resource, as Margaret was saying, and just to get the word out and communicate with our citizens in town. I mean, we're spread out over a very large period of time, and again, our written medias aren't helping us with getting the word out. So we're trying to utilize that. It was a relatively small investment for the town, but along the lines of communication, I think it is a big benefit.
So obviously, communication's been something that's been talked about for many years, and I don't think there's any one silver bullet, so to speak, here. Because everybody kind of plugs into their own channel of what they use. But circling back to maybe what Dave was talking about, maybe, I don't know whether one of the ideas for using some of that funding there would be to put out a digital a community calendar, community information board, maybe in front of Knowlton or something, in front of the town hall. That could be done. It's probably going to cost you $10,000-$15,000, but it would serve the community as a for meeting notices for budgets and things like that, and and people drive by. I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's Facebook. I think it served its purpose for connecting a lot of people here in Ashford, and the citizens certainly is a great way. It goes out, but I don't think a lot of people, it ends up unfortunately down at the transfer station. I think never read, but I think I think there's an opportunity here to grow those lines of communication. So I think Dave, that was a good idea. Whether we find the right location for it, but I think that might be something we add to the list as well. That fits right in with the COVID, and I mean, I think it'd meet the criteria for spending that kind of money.
Yep.
Yeah, Mike, I'm going to have to ring off. I need to lay down. But I'd leave just one thing: is if you can take it as an action item to get the new stakeholders meeting organized, and then we could get more than just these two guys. We could hopefully get a dozen or more people that would be new to the town as far as volunteering.
Right.
Okay. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Night.
Yep.
So that'll be one of the action items. We'll work on that, and I'll communicate to everybody here. And also, one of the things, I think we do have Dave's and Eddie's email addresses, Margaret, or maybe you can forward that to us, and we'll make sure we keep you in the loop on this.
All right. Yeah.
Good.
So yeah, I'll pull something together, Bill, as well to kind of, I actually do have some stuff we pulled together before and send that to you, kind of the draft, kind of. See
Very
what
good.
you think about that. Other items on our kind of just to touch off some of our other project updates. Some of the things we've been working on, may not be aware of, have been kind of, we did what we call a road safety audit for our assessment of the Route 4474 corridor with the DOT and a number of other people. That was actually, it's like almost 4 years ago now. And that at least identified a number of things for safety, because obviously there's been a number of accidents there and what have you. And you know, the DOT had done, at least they got the signs up across some the Cumberland Farms for no truck or no parking. They did some modifications at the church for the commuter parking lot, and they did some initial kind of upgrades, so I should say replacement, more maintenance of the signal at Route 44 and some line striping. But I mean, there's still maybe some things there, Bill, within that RSA. I know you probably had some conversation with them on maybe the school zone, the speed limits and things like that. But I mean, there still remains some things that could be further out initiatives there. I think it still remains some, I think some improvements that could be done along the approach to the Cumberland Farms for sightline improvements and things like that. You know, speeding, obviously, you know, there's the crossing there. We talk about pedestrian access. I mean, the town did install that signal, the road crossing pedestrian signal. I think that's kind of unfortunately has failed, but so there remains some opportunities there, I think, that we can look at on all of that to kind of continue to leverage that initial study that was done. And you know, the state will be receiving more funds on infrastructure monies. And just for Dave and Ed, one of the things, a vision that we actually had some UConn students from the landscape architect department help kind of develop some images of or visions of what they thought that whole corridor should look like. And one of the things that Ashford lacks is really kind of identity of a town center. Because when you come up to where the Knowlton Hall and the town, you know, town offices are, you come to the light at 89 and 44, and you look, there's a sign right there past the intersection, heading up the hill. It says Ashford, 2 miles up the hill. So you say, well, can I just pass? So I mean, one of the things we look at is trying to make it more friendly, pedestrian friendly. I mean, it's kind of a pipe dream probably in one sense, but trying to develop some trails or bike paths or even pedestrian ways of some sort, connecting at least the town center up to Route 74. You know, and but again, those are things that are kind of way out there. You know, those are type techniques that they call traffic calming that they can use to kind of slow down traffic when you see things like that along the roadside.
As someone that
but that's a bigger vision and things that are out there still, and we probably gather more information.
Yeah, I don't
financial
cut you off at all.
Financial thing to
as
do
someone that had their dog pass away pretty recently, I definitely know what you're talking about. So yeah,
right.
Sucks.
Right. Yeah,
Sucks
so I mean, those are some things that were out there as projects when we talk about other things we've kind of looked at. But there's been some little incremental things that have been accomplished. But I think there's still some things out there depending on what the community wants to see. And there's certainly, as Bill knows, a lot of priorities, a lot of hands out, a lot of needs in the community. And certainly, we were looking at building sidewalks and trails up the mountain there, up the hill.
No, definitely appreciate it a lot.
High on the priority list of spending money, but those are some things I just want to mention that we're out there. There's still some things that we can engage the state and actually the state road to have them kind of initiate.
Thank you.
I've had some discussions already with DOT, and I know Mike Sambo and Catherine Silversmith did the same. I mean, one of my goals is to slow traffic down here on between 89 and 74 going through the center of town, and the installation of a traffic signal up at 74 and 44. I travel that intersection maybe half a dozen times a day, and we've had multiple accidents there, and I just thank the Lord we haven't had any more seriously recently. we do need to, and I know our state rep has been working with DOT and trying to emphasize that too. So we're not, while we may have a large plate and a number of things on it, we're not forgetting about that stuff. And I appreciate the reminders every once in a while.
Hey, Bill, can I ask you a question, Bill?
Yeah, Ray.
When it comes to, and Mike is bringing it up, the actual definition of Ashford as a place is really Warrenville and West Ashford. That both municipal and commercial areas of the town. But the state has designated the center of Ashford really as the original historic area of Ashford, which is up a ways on Route 44. Is there any way?
It's by the academy.
Right.
Yeah.
I made some, which used to be the center of town when Eastford was part of Ashford.
Exactly.
And that's where that started. And Ray, I've had conversations over many years, and we'll continue on it, that this is the center of town, the Warrenville section.
Well,
It's-
I was wondering if there could be a compromise. Compromise is always healthy in this environment. Okay, now the historic part of Ashford, I think, should stay. It is, and that's what it is, historic Ashford. But I'm wondering if there's any way that the town could create, or the state could create signage that would kind of emphasize the fact that this is the Ashford Center.
Yeah.
I mean, would that really kill them to, to put up a sign that would kind of begin the thought process of where the current or modern center of Ashford really is?
Well, Ray, we're stubborn enough to keep pursuing that. We've been
Okay.
doing that for many years, but it makes total sense. I can't tell you how many people have come to me and complain about that sign that Mike mentioned to you just past 89 heading west that points you all the way out of town. It's the direct opposite. But we'll stay on that, Ray, and point well taken. I mean, if there's a center of Ashford, it's here, in Warrenville.
Okay, any other thoughts anybody has? I think we've covered just about everything here. Any other thoughts, closing? Mr. Felletti, any other last words of wisdom?
No,
that you'd like to
I know
leave
I
with us?
said it at the beginning of the meeting, but I want you folks to know, I really, and the Board of Selectmen really appreciate all of our volunteers and the work you folks have done, and going through some of these past 2 years, it's been even tougher on our folks, but it is much appreciated. And our community, again, would not be the community that we are without you. And we deeply appreciate it. And for you younger folks, get involved. We need you.
Exactly.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Dave and Eddie, for attending this evening. We appreciate your feedback. It's very, very well appreciated here. And anybody else have any other thoughts? Any last comments? Good to see everybody. Well, I appreciate you spending your evening with us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. It's been great to have you.
Thank you.
very much.
Yes, Bill, much appreciated. Thank you for your support, and we'll be in touch. How's
Very
that?
good. Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Have a good
Any
one.
motion to adjourn?
So
Motion to
moved.
adjourn. Someone, thank you. We'll see you all.
Thanks,
Take care.
Eddie and Dave.
Yep, thank you. Thanks
Thank
again.
you.
Thanks,
Bye,
David.
Good night,
everybody.
all.